I'm Sharon Bill. Welcome to my Music Theory Tuition series where I work with you step by step through the ABRSM Discovering Music Theory grades. I'll work through every single exercise and explain everything you need to know. You can access information about the books I have available to help you on my website. Go to sharonbill.com. For advert-free and longer lessons, you can become a patron at patreon.com/SharonBill. If you can give me a like, that would be super, and please do subscribe to my channel to stay updated. You can support this channel by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/SharonBill. Moving on in the topic of scales, we now get to work through some exercises to just refresh our memory on everything that we've learned so far in this topic. And so we've discussed how, if we just refer back to the previous page, 32, we've already learned how steps 3 to 4 and steps 7 to 8 are always semitones to make the major scale pattern. The other steps are full steps or tones, and in order to make that happen, we need to remember that C major doesn't need any changes at all, no sharps or flats. But to make that pattern, we need to remember that G major has F sharps, D major requires an F sharp and a C sharp, and F major requires a B flat in order to make that proper arrangement of tones and semitones, which creates the major scale sound. So here we've got a little clue reminding us of the sharps and flats that are required. And so in exercise 5, we're asked to add accidentals. That means sharps or flats next to the notes required in order to make these scales correct. And so G major, we know, requires an F sharp, but we've got to be careful to place that correctly. We are descending, so we know we're beginning and ending on G. We're stepping down the scale. We're in treble clef, and so every good boy deserves football. Here is F. There is the F, and we need to sharpen it. Now, the sharp must go before the note. I know that we say F sharp in writing, but we put the sharp beforehand because you need to know before you play it. It's no good putting it afterwards. If you were playing that, you'd sort of play the note and then think, oh, shucks, it should have been sharpened. We need to know beforehand. And the sharp sign has to be placed with the box showing the line going through the middle. Perhaps do that again. Let's just tidy it up a little bit. Let's go again. You always work in pencil. It doesn't matter if you go wrong, you just rub it out. There we are, it's a bit tidier. So there is the sharp sign. And now that we've got the G major with the F sharp in it, that will be correct. And the tones and semitones will now all work correctly for the major scale pattern. So F major, again, this is descending. And if you weren't very familiar with your clef, actually, just before we move on, you could even just think G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and that would make sure you got the right note then. If you didn't feel familiar or comfortable in this clef, you can always just give yourself a few clues. And so in the bass clef, so if we start at the bottom, F, we start on F, of course. G, we know that it's good boys deserve. A, all cows eat grass. B, C, D, E, F. And so we can be doubly sure we've got the correct note in the correct clef. And so F major requires a B flat. So here is note B, good boys. The flat must come before the note, so we know in advance it's going to be flattened. And then the line goes through the centre of the flat sign, sort of circle, half circle, I guess, just as you would the note. It's positioned exactly the same as the note is positioned. And then finally, we have D major, so we want a D. We're in the bass clef, good boys deserve. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. If you're familiar with the clef, you perhaps won't need to do that, but it doesn't hurt to just give yourself some extra clues. We know that D major requires an F sharp and a C sharp, so D, E, F sharp, the sharp goes beforehand. C sharp, there's our middle C, which is now sharpened. So that's that exercise completed. Let's move on to exercise 6. Now we're going to just go back to revisit the degrees of the scale. So that just literally means the steps of the scale. And so we're asked, what is the 5th degree of G major? And so if we start on G, now this is where, if you remember, you can easily get sidetracked by forgetting to count G as the 1st degree of the scale. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you get confused and go 1, 2, then you're going to end up with the wrong answer. So we want the 5th degree of the scale. 1 is G, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the 5th degree of the scale is D. Or of course, you could just count up. Remember, we're counting upwards, always degrees counting upwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can see that D is the 5th step, the 5th degree of the scale. So perhaps you can just continue with this exercise and then we'll check them together. So I'm hoping you've had a go. Let's check them together. So which note is the 3rd degree of D major? So we could just pop back and think 1, 2, 3, F sharp, or if that wasn't to hand, you could use your piano keyboard. 1, 2, 3, remembering D major must have F sharps. And here we can see that's our answer. What is the 7th degree of F major? So, well, thinking about it, we know that F is the 8th because we've gone the whole octave. So 1 backwards is E. Or, of course, you can count it kind of the long way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or you can count it looking at the stave, counting upwards, remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. F major has B flats. That's not affecting this degree. And so we know the answer is E. There we go. Now we're asked, which degree of F major is this? We're in the treble clef and we know that F is degree 1. That's our first step of the scale. So we can count up the steps of the ladder system of the stave. 1, 2, 3, 4, space, line, space, line. That's the 4th. And you can double check that by looking at the piano. 1, 2, 3, 4, remembering that B must be flattened, which explains that. And so therefore we can be sure it's the 4th step, the 4th degree of the scale. So now we've got to count which degree of D major is this. So D is our tonic, our 1, our first step. And so counting space, line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We know that D is the 8th. So back 1 is 7, counting backwards to double check it. And you can triple check it by counting on your piano keyboard. Counting D as 1, remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Remembering that D major has to have C sharps, which explains this here. And so now we're extra sure that it is indeed the 7th degree of the scale. And now counting which degree of G major scale is this. So we're in the bass clef, so there's G. That's our first, our tonic. G, good boys deserve. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know that's the 4th degree of the scale. Or using your piano keyboard, G, 1, 2, 3, 4. We know that C is the 4th degree of the scale. Or if you found it easier, I guess what you could do to be really simple about how to approach this, let's just step out the scale of G major. Not even worrying about the stave. We know that G major must have F sharps. And then we have a C, all cows. And we know that that's 1, 2, 3, 4. We know it's the 4th degree of the scale. So you could always do it that way if you found that easier, just so you're not confused at all. So there we have it, the 4th degree of the scale. I hope this is helpful to your studies. Please do like and subscribe to stay updated. If you'd like to support this channel, you can buy me a coffee. And for advert-free lessons, you can become a patron. Do visit my website where you'll find many resources available to help you. Visit sharonbill.com. Thanks for watching. Bye.